Family dynamic has sadly changed. I invite you to listen to this conversation. In an ideal world, every child would have the joy of waking up to devoted and loving parents every Christmas morning. Unfortunately, it is not the reality for many when parents get divorced and they no longer stay in the same home. So let's talk about preparing for the holidays as a separated or divorced parent and how you can manage this for your children as well. Attorney and family law specialist at Witz Inc Attorneys, Jenna Jacobs, joins me now to talk a little bit more. Jenna, good morning. Thank you so much. I know you've probably also got your last-minute shopping, if you like every other South African out there, to do so. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. The 2022 divorce data shows that over 55% of divorces involve couples with children under the age of 18. So we know that when that splitting up happens, there's some social and familial impacts, and they can become more stark over the holidays, like tomorrow, when conflict may arise over who will get the children and when. What is your perspective on South Africa's divorce rate and the impact on the family unit around custody and holidays like these?
Yes, you know, it is a terrible time for children most especially. However, I will say to you that divorce doesn't necessarily need to be the most traumatic time in a child's life, where we have two parents who are committed to effectively co-parenting with one another. Whilst, yes, it is a difficult time of year, absolutely, with the holidays upon us, it is important to remember fundamentally the most important people or person in this scenario is the children. And so, yes, of course, where we have a parenting plan in place, that gives us the rule book, the guideline as to how we're going to navigate this difficult time. But if there isn't a parenting plan in place that tells us how the following holidays and time is going to be shared between the two respective parents, what we need to bear in mind and put at the forefront is the best interest of the children.
So you talk about a parenting plan. I mean, you know, we know that a lot of families struggle to do things like even just have a budget or some of the other, what might seem to be simpler tasks. And when it comes to children and what's going to happen around the holidays or who's going to have custody and when, on the one hand, you know, people don't obviously apply their minds as clearly. On the one hand, you could have a divorce or a separation agreement, that sets that out from a legal perspective. Sometimes couples don't always adhere to that or might want to be a little bit flexible in terms of what they had originally agreed to. Talk to us about the options that separated parents have at their disposal then.
So what I will start off by mentioning is that in South African law, there's no legal form or legally recognized form of separation. All right, we have married parents and we have unmarried parents. We also have divorced parents that fall into that unmarried parents category. Okay. And so where we have divorced parents, when parties get divorced, as part of the divorce process, a parenting plan or an agreement on how the children's parental rights and responsibilities are going to be exercised will be put in place, all right? However, and I will say to you, this is becoming more and more the norm, that we have two parents that were never married or have become divorced. And so where you have never been married, the two parties, we have to put in place a plan where parents cannot agree with one another, okay? Now, this plan can be put in place by a professional, a social worker, the family advocate's office, with assistance from the children's court or with an attorney's assistance, all right? And I think what is important to bear in mind is that this, as I mentioned earlier, is the rule book. It's the foundation on which we co-parent with the other parent. However, we can always negotiate and we can always add on to that. And so where there is a dispute, we use the fallback position of this parenting plan that is then put in place. But a lot of families also do not find that this parenting plan or a formal agreement is necessary, where there's a very amicable relationship. My view as a family law attorney is that high walls make good neighbors. And so, of course, a parenting plan, a settlement agreement that encompasses all the parental rights and responsibilities is always the first option that we want to have, because it almost just sets out the boundaries with which the parents will then co-parent with one another in.
I think the word boundaries, clarity, a fallback plan, these are so important because especially if you're making these decisions almost spontaneously, it's coming with the added pressure of what the high holidays always bring, regardless of whether you have children or not, and that is the advent of family and visits and expenses and all of those things. So how do you go about doing this, especially, Jenna, when there's enmity between both parents effectively? What are some of the tools that they can use at their disposal? I know that you mentioned social worker, family advocate. Share with us one or two scenarios for where couples really don't like each other, may use the children still as pawns, and tools for power in the relationship, for them to bring in a third party that can help them just navigate that. And this might also involve what happens throughout the course of the year for other holidays as well, where there might be some trade-offs.
Yes, absolutely. I think given that it's the 24th of December, this is probably not going to be the most useful information for this Christmas. However, going forward, certainty is absolutely what we need to aim for. All right. If you are finding yourself in a situation where you're having difficulties with co-parenting, where the children are being used as pawns, as you say, we need to reach out to the professionals. Where I would absolutely start is with a family law specialist, an attorney who can guide you. There are no two families that are the same. There are no two children within one family that is the same. And so we have to take a very specialized approach with each family, with each child, as to what is appropriate, what is in that child's best interest, and what is in that family's best interest. Okay. One of the options that is available through your attorney, and I will say this is also available for you to do as a layperson, as an independent person, but is to approach the children's court, all right, to bring an application, set out what the issues are that one is facing with the other parent, with the other co-parent, and that then the court will be able to guide us as to who would be appropriate to appoint in this situation. If the parties have, and I'll say to you, are able to afford the services of a private psychologist, child psychologist, a forensic, who can do an investigation, meet with the parties, and put forward recommendations as to what is in the children's best interests, that is a really, really good tool that is available as well for parties who are having difficulties. However, if you are not fall into those categories of persons who are able to afford the private services of a child psychologist, there are many amazing, and I say that, with absolute certainty, government-funded services that are available to assist families, to support families through difficult times, and to put together a plan, an agreement, an order of court that is going to guide and facilitate good family dynamics going forward.
You talked about one of the options being approaching the family court, and I know that there are family advocates as well inside the family court to help mediate the terms of how custody or the custodial agreement itself. So I just want to find out whether that's available everywhere. How do people access or find where their nearest one is, number one? And then the second piece on the government-funded services, again, how do families that are without means access those services?
Sure. So to start off, your first question was, where is the children's court, right, that is available? It is in every jurisdiction. You'll go to the local magistrate's court where the children reside. So we look at the domicile of the children, all right, where they are primarily resident. We go to the nearest magistrate's court and we find out if there's a children's court based in that magistrate's court. All right. The distinction between the family court and the children's court, it's semantics, I'll say that, but we must bear in mind we don't want to get confused, because in the High Court, the Johannesburg High Court at this point, there's a specialized family court that has been appointed. All right. And under these circumstances, for the everyday person, it is not necessary to run off to the High Court unless there's a matter of extreme urgency. Okay, and so you're going to go off to your children's court in your jurisdiction and you're going to fill out your application form. The clerks, if you're not assisted by an attorney, are fantastic and they will be able to assist you with the process going forward. Okay, so your second question, I was so focused on the first one. If you can just repeat the second part of your question for me.
It's around the government-funded services and how people can access that if they don't have the means for a private psychologist, say.
So FAMSA is an incredible organization. I definitely recommend reaching out to FAMSA. FAMSA, all right? When you approach your children's court as well, automatically, if the court deems it necessary, they will ask for a social worker to be appointed. So that's the state-funded social worker, all right? They will then potentially refer the matter to the family advocate's office. And so that's also a state-funded institution that will be able to assist you. And so I think the starting point generally in matters such as this is to start at the family court or the children's court in your jurisdiction.
Just to close and to go back to the way that you began, Jenna, and this is around the children, we have to remember that whatever heat and war, because emotions do run high, especially, you know, if the breakup was really, really bad, children become that sort of, you know, tool of war effectively. And you would have seen a lot of this in your practice. Just again, remind parents what's really at stake here and who they should really be trying to solve this problem for.
Absolutely. The forefront of every dispute should be the child's best interest, the children's best interests. You know, when I'm helping parties navigate a difficult divorce, what I say to every single client without fail is that you are going to have to engage with this party, this person that you once loved, that you created this family with for the rest of your entire life, okay? A lot of people believe that it's up until the age of 18, but you know, practically speaking, that's just simply not the truth. What we find is we're going to have long-term engagement, whether it's 21st birthday parties, weddings, grandchildren, Christmases going forward. And we certainly do not want a situation where the child, even an adult child at that stage, feels that they are stuck in the middle of this animosity. And so when the question arises as to how a holiday should be exercised, how a special occasion, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, whatever the case may be in your family, what we have to ask ourselves is, what would be in the child's best interests here? Listen to the children. If they are of an age that they can communicate what they desire, listen to them. Even if we have a situation where we have a parenting plan or a settlement agreement in place that says, Mom is going to exercise Christmas this year, and the children are saying, no, Mom, can we go to Dad? I, as a human, would say to you, yes, you know, listen to your children and make them feel safe enough to ask those questions. If they want to, if they express an opinion and they express a wish or a desire to go visit Dad, let them, all right? I'd say that the parenting plan is your fallback position if there really cannot be any agreement between the parties. But ultimately, every decision by every parent, every family member, is what is in the children's best interest.
Jenna, I'm so glad we ended on that point, because I think if you and I cast our minds back, and probably everyone who's watching, to a childhood holiday memory, we have some memory of a childhood holiday experience. For some, it's horrible, and for some, it's fantastic. So what we're building in these children, by what you've just said, is future memories, and let's try and make them good ones. Let's make them wholesome. And even if you're holding all of the cards as the custodial parent, and the children are expressing, as you say, because I want to co-sign on that point you just made, and they're saying we want something different, perhaps it's time to listen to them and do what is in their best interest. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Good luck with your Christmas preparations, and all the best and blessings to you and your family. Jenna Jacobs, who is a family law specialist, talking to us about children and co-parenting over the holidays.